Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Northrop Grumman Raytheon Technologies Next Generation Interceptor Leadership Roundtable. I'm Scott Day, Director of Communications for Launch and Missile Defense Systems of Northrop Grumman's Space Sector business. We're coming to you live from Huntsville, Alabama, utilizing the Zoom communications platform. We're socially distanced and would have preferred to conduct this event with a live audience, but we're moving forward because it's an important part of the future of our program. On Zoom, I'd recommend that you utilize the speaker view for the best viewing of the information that we'll be sharing today. Please feel free to put your questions or comments in the text box during today's program. We'll try to entertain as many questions as possible throughout the program. We do have a couple charts to share, but we want this session to be as interactive as possible with our NGI leadership team. We're also interested in getting some feedback with an instant survey. I'd like to ask you, using your phone or computer or other device, to point your browser to menti.com. That's menti.com, menti.com, and enter the code 993-2705. 993-2705. We have several questions in the survey that you can answer once you log into the website. And at the end of the survey, you can ask questions, provide comments for the leadership team. Survey responses, questions, and comments are completely anonymous. Again, that login information is menti.com, 993-2705. Our goal today is to provide some insight on the future opportunities to work on the Next Generation Interceptor program with Northrop Grumman and Raytheon Technologies here in Huntsville. Our panelists today are Northrop Grumman and Raytheon Technologies leadership, who are supporting our Next Generation Interceptor pursuit, including Terry Feehan, former United States Air Force Major General and Program Director, Next Generation Interceptor for Northrop Grumman. Melissa Morrison-Ellis, Next Generation Interceptor Deputy Program Manager from Raytheon Technologies. Joe Canginelli, Director of Business Development, Northrop Grumman Launch and Missile Defense Business. And Roya Montecap, Next Generation Interceptor Capture Strategy Director, Raytheon Technologies. To our panelists, I'm sure our participants would like to get to know you a little bit better. So I'm going to ask them some general questions about your background, where you're from, what did you study, what's a typical day look like, and what got you interested in working in missile defense, or how did you become involved in the missile defense part of the industry. So for Melissa and Joe, tell us a little bit about your job backgrounds.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Melissa Morrison-Ellis. I'm fairly new to Huntsville, Alabama. I moved here from Massachusetts, where I'm born and raised, just 2 years ago. It was 2 years in August. And one of the things that brought me to Huntsville was the opportunity to continue my career in program management in an area that I felt was a little less saturated for women. So that's really why I was here. As far as missile defense, you know, I've been in missile defense for the past 8 years or so. I focus more on the radar sensor side, so I'm really bringing that experience into NGI. But program management is kind of what I've done for the past 20 years or so. I've been with Raytheon for the past 16 years, so really excited about this next opportunity.
Great, thanks. Joe?
I'm Joe Canginelli. Thank you, Melissa. That was a great background. I am not from Huntsville. I actually live pretty much all over the world. I have been in the aerospace industry for the past 20 years or so, and have had the opportunity to work in the missile defense arena and that mission space for the last 5 years. And I've been with Northrop Grumman for 5 years, so I'm really excited I've been a part of the missile defense and the GMD program for these last 5 years, and I'm really looking forward to our future in Next Generation Interceptor.
Good. Terry?
So, Terry or Royal?
Terry.
Okay.
Or Roy.
Well, he threw me off there. So, well, I actually had a conversation with my guidance counselor in high school. And he says, "What are you going to do?" And so I said, "I don't know." And he suggested that I look at the service academies. And so after some applications and things, I eventually did get an appointment to the Air Force Academy. And as you said, I had a long career there, over 30 years in the Air Force, and was in procurement, was in acquisition during a great deal of that time, from aircraft systems to missile systems. And part of that was within the Missile Defense Agency, and being able to work this mission that defends our deployed forces, but it also defends the homeland. And that just really captured me. And when I was able to retire from the Air Force, I sought that out. I wanted to continue to work in missile defense. And I looked at the different companies and was drawn to Northrop Grumman. They were doing the ground-based Interceptor, which is the next generation. Interceptor is the next generation of that defends the nation. And they work on all of the different systems, the targets that prove out the other parts of missile defense. And so it was a real honor to be able to join that team and now to be able to be the director of the next generation Interceptor to go forward.
Roya, how about you?
So it's about 20 years ago I joined Raytheon, and I have to say at the time I had very little idea of what Raytheon does. I know it was a defense company, but what we really did was I didn't understand that until I really got into the company. But it has been a great company. It has been a great career for me. And about a year ago, I moved to Huntsville. I have been in now missile defense for the last 13 to 14 years. I was very fortunate that I got into being the program manager for the EKB program, which is the predecessor to our NGI, or what is defending the nation right now, the Interceptor for the current ground-based Interceptor program. And now I am very, very fortunate and happy to be the capture lead for the next generation Interceptor, which is, it's much, much improved over the EKB program.
Right. Some great backgrounds. Thank you. Tell us a little bit about what a typical day looks like for you. Let's start with Joe.
Well, I don't really have a typical day because I'm in business development, but my day could start off where I'm hosting a customer meeting, or I am hosting an industry partner, or I could be, like today, attending a rocket launch. Tonight we have our rocket launch for our International Space Station, our cargo resupply mission to the International Space Station. So my day really depends on what activity is happening within all the many different opportunities that we pursue.
Roy, you probably have similar days.
Yes, so Joe and I have become very good friends for the last year or so that we have started working on the next generation Interceptor together. And our days start like what Joe said. We basically meeting with our customers, understanding what their needs are, so we can then basically find capabilities that we have within our companies to make sure that we respond to our customer. The main thing is what our customer needs are and what is required to defend this great nation.
Terry, what's a typical day for you?
Well, as a program manager, my goal every day is to help people be successful. And so, I wake up, I try to get my coffee, and I grab the phone and see if there's an emergency. But it's about getting fully up to speed as rapidly as possible in the morning to see what may be holding back the rest of the team, to empower them, to enable them to do great things. And so I look at what are the barriers from a personnel standpoint, what are the barriers from a resources, a money, and equipment, and I try to break down those barriers. So my whole day is about helping others to be successful. I mean, that sounds like a cliche, but a good program manager, that's what it's all about, is to making the team that's going to do amazing things able to do amazing things.
I completely agree with what Terry said. As the program manager, we are the blockers and the tacklers to remove any barriers that are in the way for our team to be successful. It's up to us. We have ultimate accountability to execute the scope for our customer and our warfighters. So anything that's in the way, be it risks or opportunities that we can capture, we need to be on that. So communications is key. So well said.
Great. I think some of you already touched on this, but what really got you into missile defense, and what have been some of your biggest challenges? Roya, let's start with you.
What got me into missile defense was basically when I started working on the EKB program 13 years ago. I started working on that program, and I can tell you right now, I have had other opportunities to move to other programs, and I am really don't want to do that because being in missile defense, knowing that what I do every day defends this country, it's extremely comforting. It is for our children, it's for our nation, it's for the way of life. So it's extremely important to me. I got into missile defense by accident, I have to admit that. But I am loving it, and it has been great. And I really encourage anybody else out there that this is a great opportunity. This is a great thing to do for our country and our children and our neighbors.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I don't know how you top that one, but Melissa, give it a shot.
Go for it, give it a shot.
So similarly, it wasn't intentional, but I got into DOD intentionally. So my undergraduate is civil engineering, which, you know, many people will poo-poo civil engineering, but I would say along that poo-pooing, you know, I was responsible to make sure that sanitary systems properly worked. So I think it was actually a very noble career. However, I got into DOD because I liked the structure. So I focused on the business side of engineering early on in my career. And DOD had that structure that welcomed the processes that I really enjoyed. So that led me to DOD. And then when I joined Raytheon, it was more what was the need? What was the need for me? And it was a missile defense program. So I went based on what opportunities were afforded to me.
Great, thank you. Joe?
Well, I mean, candidly, I got into engineering because it was a field that not a lot of women were in at that point in time, and I had a pretty strong math background, so that's how I started in engineering. I happened to also get into DOD because I happened upon it by chance, and it ended up being in the aerospace industry, working for another industry partner, and I really enjoyed it, and I loved doing it. How did I get into business development? I love to win, right? And that's a big thing for me. I love to win. And so, you know, they say, we're the trappers and you guys go execute and make it happen, right? So, you know, I don't ever want to be on that side, and I know they don't want to ever be on this side. So, but that's how I got into it. And candidly, I'll also say, you know, the money's not so bad either. So it's a good business to be in. It's good for, it's really a great opportunity if you're trying to enter into an engineering field where you want to really make a difference for the world.
But I would pick up on what Joe is saying is that I have been on both sides. I have been on the program management side, and I have been on the business development side. So both the trappers and executors. And I would say that it is, it's a great career experience and great, basically, thing to do for our country, no matter what you're doing, whether you are in the engineering side of it, your program management side of it, development side of it, execution side of it, all of it is great. And if you are like me that have been in this field for years and years and years, you probably try every piece of it at some point in your career, and you learn along the way moving forward. And it's been a great experience, and I recommend it to everyone.
Looking back on your careers, what have been some of your biggest challenges? Terry?
Well, within the Air Force career, I was a commander during 9/11, and that was probably my biggest challenge that I ever had. Within the acquisition and the procurement development, I was also in charge of the F-15 fighter during the initial stages of the war, and that system needed to be upgraded extensively to be able to not cause as much collateral damage in our pursuits of the enemy in theater. And so we had 1 year to get certain systems completely developed and put onto the aircraft so that it could go downrange, as we say. We were able to take what had been only to be able to engage with larger bombs, to be able to use much smaller, to be much more precise to attack the enemy and not, hurt non-combatants. And so those systems, those 2 to 3 years of trying to rapidly give those capabilities and send people down where they will be safer, but will also be able to prosecute with much more precision the engagement. Those are probably some of the greatest challenging years that I had.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I think for me, it was more of finding my lane. So, as I mentioned, having that civil engineering background, and then I pursued my master's in engineering management. In DOD, in Rocket City, you've got the best and the brightest, the smartest people. but figuring out how I fit in with the skill sets that I bring to the table and convincing others that those skill sets are actually required for an excellence in your program execution. So just, it took me a while to really figure that out, but I'm pleased to say that with, Raytheon Technologies has been very welcoming to diverse backgrounds. So I encourage those who are looking for jobs and starting out on careers or changing careers to make sure that you don't undersell what you bring to the table, because it's diversity of thought, it's difference of opinion that's going to make our program execution key. So Terry talked about it. We're all about the people, and it takes all different types of people to execute well. So I think that was probably the biggest challenge for me, figuring out where my lane was and then being accepted in it.
Right. Listen, you make a great point. We all come with something that's been put on us, right? Our parents protected us from things, but by protecting us sometimes placed limitations. We had a teacher that just said, hey, you don't really get this. We had friends that said, oh, don't take that harder class, right? You can get an easier A over here. And so they tried to build us up or protect us, but in ways they put limitations on ourselves. And being able to identify how people sometimes place limitations on themselves and helping them see through that, to see their ultimate potential, to help them be successful. Isn't that what being a leader or manager is all about? Yeah. To be able to empower people to go beyond what they ever dreamed. So that was a great point, and I love the way you brought that up.
Yeah. Thanks. How about you, Joe?
So, the biggest challenge. I've had a lot of challenges. I know that the team's had a lot of challenges. I think the environment today is very challenging in terms of the pandemic we're dealing with all of the other challenges that are happening in the political environment today. I think it's very hard for us to communicate and collaborate and be leaders in this environment. So one of the things that we're trying to do, and I applaud all those, is we have to come up with really creative, unique ways. This is one of them, this leadership forum. And I'm not used to this, right? I'm used to a live audience and having, people asking questions. But we have to come up with creative ways to really solve some of these really hard problems that we have. And this problem that we've got today with what we're trying to solve for the Missile Defense Agency is a hard problem. It's a hard challenge, and it's for the right mission, right? It's for defending its homeland, and it's for not today, it's for the next 10, 20, 30 years from now, and what's going to be happening with this threat and as it evolves. So I think that today's environment, we have to work extra hard to overcome that challenge that we have in this environment and make ourselves successful in spite of. Right, in spite of all the adversities that are put in front of us. So I think that's something that we're all dealing with every day. It's personal. Everyone's kind of approaching it from a different perspective. But I think that that's something that we got to just continue to push on and not use it as an excuse to not accomplish what we need to accomplish in order to protect us and protect our nation and protect, our lives and our children as they grow up. So,
yeah. Raya?
Melissa sort of brought up that she needed to find her lane. My problem has always been that I want to do it all. And I see it. As I said, I see program management. I see, business development. I see engineering, various different engineering, and I'm like, I can do it all. I like to try them all. So that has been my challenge. It's that, but working for a large company defense company like Raytheon has provided me that opportunity, that there are opportunities and you're allowed to try them and see where you're fit best. So that has been my greatest challenge, but I am very lucky to be where I am.
Great.
I'm actually lucky that Roya does want to do it all, because I know stepping into the capture, we were in the pandemic, and I remember calling Roya on one Sunday. I was like, I can't figure out what you're doing. I can't figure out where you are, and what's going on? And it was just, I was challenged, and she's probably like, who is this lady? Why is she calling me? But I was like, I need help, and Roya understands my side as well as the capture side, and that has really been helpful to me. We were in Chandler. Roya and I had our own room, and we knocked it out of the park. We had fun while we were working through that proposal, but really we had a knowledge transfer. transfer. And that's not afforded to everybody in their career, to be able to have two leaders in the room while we're working and we're cross-feeding each other. So it was awesome.
Yeah.
I hope she thinks it was awesome. I loved it.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. That's going to wrap up kind of our introduction section. I think we're going to turn now and before we go on to with more in-depth questions, take a look at some of our survey questions. If you're familiar with the word cloud, the more responses, the bigger the word. So right now, a lot of our audience, we've got some zip codes in there, but we've got Tennessee, Chattanooga, Arizona, Phoenix. So a wide variety of Greenville. There's some zip codes, 60201. So next slide. Let's go to our next question, please. Rank the top things you look at for when applying to a company. It looks like culture is one of the most important items. And we've got nature of the work, which I think you guys all touched on very well. I mean, the nature of the work, the protection of the homeland. So the survey kind of builds in front of us. So let's go to the next. Do you have aerospace and missile defense experience? So yes to both, some no's, yes to aerospace, and some to missile defense. So again, the survey is open for all those participants on the line. It's menti.com. The code is 993-2705. And we'll come back to some of these other questions a little bit later into the program.
Just look at that question is, how have you been in aerospace? I always talk to young people when I get, and they say, what kind of career should I have? And by the way, civil engineers, that rocks. That is a hard major. Those are great engineers, and they get to spend a lot of time outside. That's just way cool, right? But so Joe talked about it. We're going to launch this afternoon. So you can do a lot of engineering. You can do a lot of program management. You can do a lot of finance. You can do any of the disciplines you can do just about any business you can do in aerospace.
Right.
But you don't get to, 3 times a year see the fruits of your labor go to the International Space Station.
Right.
You don't get to see, we have a team deployed on that in Kwajalein, which is an island. If you go from Los Angeles to Hawaii and you go that same distance again out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, we have a team deployed there that is going to build up a rocket on a piece of concrete and then launch it later this year. And all the people that will take success. Aerospace is kind of cool because the fruit of your labor flies. Yeah. The fruit of your labor goes and deploys somewhere. It brings great data to defend the nation. It's just a neat place to work, whether you're in software or you're in finance. And so those of you that said, not in aerospace, I'm glad you're listening, because it is a cool place to be.
Yeah. Let's pick up on that theme a little bit more, Terry, and talk about what are some of the types of skills that we're going to be looking for moving forward with this program. What are the core competencies that we're really looking for in potential candidates and filling some of these jobs that we're going to be bringing to Huntsville?
Yeah. Let's talk about the last first, the core competencies that we're going to look for. That's somebody that wants to get in and be part of a big team. Somebody that wants to row hard. Somebody that wants to play in a big picture thing, to see themselves as part of a big picture, something that is a multi-company enterprise, things that are being done all over the country to come together. So somebody that wants to be part of something big, maybe that's the attribute that we're looking for. And then because of that, and because it is such a large program, it will be the finance, it will be a contracting, it will be systems engineers, engineers of all types, people that want to do and advance what we call development, security, operations, to use the rapid tools, the agile tools for software, people that want to be cutting edge in the way they're going to do their jobs and the way they do their business. We want that type of motivation, that type of attitude. Melissa?
Yeah, I think Terry well said, digital engineering in the implementation that we have on NGI is, something that not a lot of the workforce has experienced. So coming to a program like ours gives you that expertise.
Cutting edge.
Right? And I know that we're here talking about NGI hiring, But it's also important to see that because we're going to have the best of the best on the NGI program, we probably are going to leave some holes in some other areas. Both companies, we have backlog.
Yep.
So the opportunity, I don't want people to be, well, I'm not sure NGI is for me. If you have the skills, apply, because we will need to backfill some other positions in order to be successful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just to talk a little bit more about the digital engineering and the importance of it, I think, software development and I'll say the evolutionary and almost on the edge of revolutionary software development, and we're not talking what I did when I was in school, okay? Fortran and Pascal, okay?
Well, I never heard of those. What are they?
Exactly, right? But we're talking about really agile DevSecOps, digital engineering, model-based systems engineering. How do we implement that very well in a program like NGI? And I think so software development is a really strong attribute that we would like to see in anybody that wants to come and work for us on this program.
Yeah, and I think the holding yourselves accountable.
Yes,
right? In
absolutely.
this pandemic environment, we don't know when we'll be able to bring everybody back into the building. Matter of fact, I will go as far as say we won't bring everybody back into the building because we've realized that we don't need to do that, right, for some roles. But we also know that not everybody is holding themselves accountable. So we want those types of candidates that are going to be able to execute outside of the office as well as in the office. That's a change, and I'm not sure how you pull that attribute out of a person, but I think for a leader, it kind of has me a little jumpy, like ooh.
But if you look at the top two things people said they want out of work, nature of the work was number 2.
Yeah.
And so if you can get so motivated, so wanting to do that work, and then be in the number 1, the culture with other people in that same way, you become self-motivated, you become part of that. And so
culture's a big thing. Actually, Roy and I were talking about it about a week ago, about culture in a company and how do you fit in. And talking in business development terms, we talk about strategic fit of things, right? It's actually, how do you fit? How do you personally fit into this culture? And some things, and it's harder in this environment, again, to see what the culture is when you're not there every single day. But it's a very important element, and you can also, we have to be, as leaders, have to help them understand what our culture is, and there are other ways to portray it than meeting in person, right? And so we're working on that, and I invite people to say, hey, this Leadership Zoom is one way that we want to try to say, hey, we are very collaborative, and we like to communicate every single day, and we like to make sure that we are interactive. So, and we want to build future leaders. That's the other very important piece of this, and I know you touched on it.
Let's talk about that, Bill, about building leaders, and what type of years of experience are we talking about? I mean, are we just looking for basics, or are we looking for experienced professionals?
the answer is yes.
Both. Yes. Yes, and yes.
So,
Okay.
Melissa, did you want to elaborate on that?
No, I was going to say all levels because there's all roles. It's really about broadening our base, our experiential base, and we need to pair up strengths and weaknesses to be successful. So a person that is brand new and has new college hires, we'll take them. A lot of times we target our job fairs to that group, but if they're there and they're available, we'll take that because there may be a fit on other programs or an opportunity to pair you with a more experienced engineer to get started. So no, definitely all levels.
Right, and we touched on knowledge transfer earlier in the conversation. I mean, that's a big part of our industry right now.
Right, oh, exactly.
But it's also about the diversity of it. Yeah. And so I remember when I first started out, I was partnered with some very senior teammates. And at first I would say, well, why are we doing this? They go, yeah, but we don't have to do it that way. In school, we just learned we can do it this way. And so there was a yin and a yang, the knowledge transfer, the challenging of we've done it this way, yeah, but there's a better way. Sometimes by partnering the more junior with the mid-level and the senior, and so we really need all three because that blends to the best solution. You have to challenge sometimes, but this really works. Yeah, but this will be better. And to get that blending of ideas. So diversity includes age diversity, experience diversity to get the best solutions.
Right.
But I
You
think
gotta-
as far as the culture goes, I think the important thing that you brought up, Terry, is the team environment.
Yes.
This is what you get. I don't care if we are part of the Raytheon Technologies or Northrop or the part of the NGI team, which all of us together, is that team environment. Like Melissa sort of touched on it when we were doing the capture, during the capture and the proposal development. We pretty much worked around the clock. We worked late nights, we worked weekends. But it's that team working with the good people, and we are all in this together, and we are working towards something that is going to keep our nation safer. That keeps you going, and that keeps you motivated. So I think that's the most important culture that is in our companies that I think is basically is a great thing to
the
have.
Commonality between
Right.
our companies is that we have this very deep rooted belief that this mission is so critically
Critical.
important for us. And that's what kind of keeps us
Holds us
going.
together.
Keeps us going every single day,
Yeah.
right?
Well, as we were talking about some of the different disciplines and stuff, we got a question from our survey. What advice do you have for an engineer who's coming from an industry such as heavy equipment or consumer productions? I mean, we're looking for skills of all levels and disciplines. What type of advice would you give that non-aerospace engineer?
Come on in.
Come on.
That's the advice I'd give. Why come on in? Because you said one was heavy equipment.
Heavy equipment, yeah, manufacturing.
Well,
I was thinking
a
quality.
Yep.
a ground-based interceptor weighs a lot. It has to be handled. It has major structures. It has major metal components. It has advanced composites. It has all of the things that are part of heavy. It has to be lifted. It has to be emplaced. It has to be transported. Oh, wait a second, that's all heavy. When you look at consumer electronics, how do you bring the best of that consumer electronics, the advancements that are going on in consumer electronics into the department? Bring it. It's that blending of those thinking, the blending of those ways of doing things that will make this program successful.
Yeah.
So I say bring it, because we need it.
I think there's, if you want to do what you're doing today or in the skill set that you have, there's opportunity definitely on this program. Our manufacturing centers are in Chandler and Utah, Chandler, Arizona, and Utah. So there's opportunities there. There's opportunities if you want to work on the software side on the avionics software. You talked about consumer electronics. So there's opportunities there. If you want to do something different and if you want to learn something new, right? You can take your skills and broaden yourself a little bit and try something new. And there's definitely lots to do using that base as a skill set, I think.
Yeah, I think when people are applying to jobs, they often just, look at the job requisition and, start checking off. Yep, I've got that, I've got that, I've got that, I've got that. Oh, don't have that. Oh, can't do it. I will say that women are more likely to, okay, I can't do it because I don't know that, where men are a little bit more out and we'll give it a go. I encourage people to definitely apply to jobs where you don't have 100% of what the person is asking for. But what you do have is you have a background, you have experiences, you have a history of executing and performing well, right? So you are qualified, but not maybe to 100% of the recs. Explain in a cover letter, or if you have an opportunity, a chat session on a webinar or a networking event, explain what you do bring to the table, because it may be something that the hiring manager just hadn't thought of or doesn't have the experience with. So completely agree, encourage the application.
I want to say one thing. I think we've come a long way in our human resources and the way we do our job requisitions, especially in aerospace. We used to do very, very detailed requisitions with all of these exquisite requirements for the job. And we turn off a lot of candidates from that perspective. So we've come a long way, but we're not all the way there yet.
Sure.
So we need collaboration on both sides. We need the candidates to sort of lean forward, and we also need to lean forward and not be overly restrictive on our requisitions, so that we can get all sorts of diversity of thought and talent in applying for those opportunities.
Yeah, we've got a question that came in from our survey platform. Ryan Hammond from Zoom asks, are applicants for this program required to have an active security clearance before applying?
So you're going to need to be able to get
Right.
a security clearance.
Right.
Right. And so you got to do a self-check and go, is there anything that would prevent me from maybe getting a clearance? But we have time for disciplines to come on and work on things that maybe not be classified at the beginning while their clearance is being worked. So while that may be a faster way to get to the ultimate position, there will be work for people that have the right skill set that we need to bring on, as long as they can get that clearance eventually.
Yeah, I believe our requisitions say that clearance is needed at the time or must be able to get.
Correct.
I believe there's some clarity on
Yep,
those
it says
requisitions.
ability to obtain. a
Ability to
clearance.
obtain, that's the word.
Right.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yep. So,
Okay.
Scott, I don't know if you're going to go to another topic, but Roy, you kept using the team.
Yes.
And for those of you that work in aerospace, you may see something a little odd here. Because the prime, Northrop Grumman, and I'm the program director. But wait a second, the deputy program director, she said she works for Raytheon Technology. This is going to be a different kind of team. To be able to make an all-up round, and that is the next generation interceptor that we are going to create, to make it as capable as it can be. We want to eliminate all those stitches that are usually done when you make a missile system. Stitching is done by an integrator, and integrators have important roles, right? Under the current ground-based interceptor, a great system. But you have an integrator that helps take the ground system that's made expertly by Northrop Grumman, the sensors at the other end that are made by a Raytheon technology, the command and control, and then you've got a booster set, right? And then you have a kill vehicle, and they work hard to stitch that together. But here, we're making such a partnership that my deputy wears a different company badge, but inside our program office, there is no badge.
Yep.
The chief engineer is going to wear a Northrop Grumman badge. But the chief engineer for the missile itself will wear a Raytheon badge. And so for those that are working in aerospace, you probably just fell back in your chair. Right? That type of partnership doesn't usually exist. But if you want to take advantage of every single component on that missile, from the bottom to the very top, you have to integrate, eliminate that stitching, eliminate those seams, and make one cohesive, one coherent, one fully capable missile set. And that's what this team's going to do. And that is unique, and it's going to be special. And that's why we're so excited about being a part of it.
Right.
Yeah, and I just want to add one thing to that. I mean, our customer has been screaming for this, okay, for direct collaboration with what we call the kill vehicle OEM, the booster OEM, right?
Original equipment manufacturer.
Yes, original equipment manufacturer. So the vendor, the producer, the manufacturer, right? And that's what we're delivering through this team. And it's amazing when you take out sort of that middleman, I'll say, what the capability that can be derived, right? When those two are just able to work together in a seamless environment like we've teamed to do today.
I mean, the entire time that we were doing this capture, the main theme was that we are going to have a team that has a badgeless environment and the best athlete runs. And that is what I bring to the people who are going to be applying for our jobs. It doesn't matter which company you are from. If you have the right skill, you're going to do that job that is needed to be done.
Well, we've had a great discussion on skills, jobs, obviously something very important to our participants. Let's tell them a little bit about the program.
Okay.
So Terry, let's transition here and talk a little bit about NGI and why the Northrop Grumman Raytheon team?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we've been talking about the next generation Interceptor, but we never gave enough detail or background. So a lot of people are probably catching on to what we're talking about. So you're right, that's a great time to make sure we get everybody up to speed and on the same sheet. And so the next generation Interceptor is going to be part of the ground-based missile defense system. This system has been in the field for almost 20 years. It defends the United States against intercontinental ballistic missile attack from rogue nations. But it's okay, we name the rogue nations, right? We don't keep it secret. North Korea and Iran have both demonstrated the ability to put satellites into space. That means you have very sophisticated rockets that can go through multiple stages, and then at the top, put off a satellite. That same technology, that same ability can also put off a warhead, a weapon. North Korea has demonstrated nuclear weapons in their underground testing. Iran, that discussion on their nuclear weapons program has been going on for years, but they don't hide it. They fully admit that they had nuclear weapons programs. And both of these nations have said that they want to attack the United States. They want to hurt the United States. And so our fielded system today is capable of protecting our nation. We don't stay up at night worrying about our families. When we kiss our children goodbye or we hug our grandkids when we're not going to see them for a little while, we don't worry whether they're going to be attacked. Some of us remember our parents did. Or you'll see the videos of people doing the duck and cover under desks in schools in the 60s. We snicker at that. They didn't snicker back then. And so we're defended today, and so most Americans don't worry about it. But the threat is evolving. It's becoming more capable. We've demonstrated through extremely hard, sophisticated tests that we can protect the country today. But as they evolve, the defense must also evolve. And so rather than just be evolutionary, adding some capability, which has been done to the current system, but those ground-based interceptors have been fielded for 16 years. We need to leap ahead. And so the Missile Defense Agency is calling it right, the next generation interceptor. And so to get ahead by the end of this decade, we must field a new system, a new capability to stay ahead of the threat so that Americans still can just kiss their babies goodnight without worrying about an intercontinental ballistic missile striking the homeland. And so the Missile Defense Agency this spring put out a request for proposal, a solicitation, and said, industry, bring us the best and most capable you can have, but with a realistic level of technology, a realistic ability to field a system by the end of this decade. And so Northrop Grumman looked at being able to do that. And we said, we want to be part of that mission set. We want to be a lead, a prime in that mission set. But we're an honest company and said, we need to partner with the very best. And so we sought out Raytheon Technologies and said, would you be with us on this journey? And so that partnership brings the very best of today's system, the best interceptor, the booster for today's, but also the booster for all of the target vehicles, for launch vehicles that come off of airplanes and launch 1,000 pounds, 5,000 pounds, 15,000 pounds. We just had a booster with 3.6 million pounds of thrust. Right. The best solid rocket motor company, the one with all the advancements, Northrop Grumman. We're going to bring it. And then you look at who has done exo-atmospheric, bullet on bullet, thousands of miles per hour intercepts. And the company that's done that is Raytheon Technologies. And so you take those two companies and you bring them together. People say, well, they're the incumbents on those systems. Okay, that's a lot of experience you gain by being the incumbent. But they are incumbents that have pushed and pushed to advance and develop that next generation capability. I just talked about 3.6 million pounds of thrust out of a single motor. Raytheon has these, we call them algorithms, but it's the math that lets those intercepts happen at those crazy speeds. And all of the advancement and knowledge they have gained through these successful tests against intercontinental ballistic missiles, bringing that together is what the next generation interceptor, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon offering is all about. And the government, in the next generation interceptor proposal request, they said, look, we want two companies to take this through critical design review. For those of you not in aerospace, that means you take it to where the design has enough maturity, fidelity, and you have reduced the risk to the point where you can make flight test vehicles to then demonstrate in an intercept, to demonstrate in a flight, and to be ready to move into production upon that demonstration. And so that will burn down the risk for the nation and ensure that the system that is finally bought to be fielded is going to meet the need. And so we're really proud to be a part of that mission, to be a part of that capability. And we're bringing our very best in an effort to win that capability.
Yeah. Terry, you referenced earlier the start of the
Can we
proposal.
just hire him? Hired. Hired on the business development team. That was great. Yeah. Sorry, Scott.
Yeah, so that's okay. No, that's great.
Sorry, I've been doing this on both sides, the government side and this side.
Is extremely passionate for this mission.
I am passionate
very
about the
meaningful.
system. I'm passionate about this whole mission set.
Yeah, we've touched on the timeline a little bit, but we got a question in from Zoom. Matthew Blau, first of all, thanks for holding the roundtable, and you're welcome. But what is the award timeline?
So the government's goal for award is December. So they are working through the proposals right now. So they have all the proposals in. They're preparing their, we call them ENs, but they are questions that come back to the contractors, and they want to make sure everything is a fair playing field. They want to make sure that every company gets a good and fair look, and that will then proceed through the rest of this year. And then the government will be able to make that determination as to who should go forward and be awarded the contract.
Okay, great, thanks. Anything else on the general program here?
So I guess I just want to re-emphasize, this is about schedule, and the Missile Defense Agency is emphasizing schedule and schedule. Yeah. And why? Because too many times, and we've seen it in the newspaper, we've seen it in magazines, we've seen it on the news, where aerospace companies bid super cool, and then they don't deliver on time,
right,
and they don't deliver on cost. And so this time, to really prevent that, the agency is saying schedule is preeminent. By the end of this decade, we need this capability. So don't bring us paper rockets. Don't bring us designs that are only capable in a computer. Bring us things with a technology readiness, a technology maturity that make this real. And then one of the reasons they have the two vendors is that as we have to mature some of those and demonstrate that they can survive the environments that will be necessary here, they'll have the ability to say, okay, this one, they went too far. They weren't able to do it. They bid too hard. But we have a valid one to go forward. And that's why the agency has two companies that they're going to select to move forward to go to critical design review.
And really, I think it's also about, risk mitigation, right?
Yes.
And that's primarily why, and that's primarily why the Missile Defense Agency wants to make sure that they're exploring all the different options. This solution is and this problem is extremely complex, right? And so the solution is obviously going to be complex, and we've talked a little bit about the different skill sets that we need in order to help solve this problem. And we do need more than paper designs. The agency needs more than paper designs. The nation needs more than that, right? And it's what we're bringing to the table in terms of can't foot stomp enough proven flight experience against these kind of threats, not against other kinds of threats. And you'll read a lot of that in the news. It's against these kind of threats. And that's what we bring to the table, is that kind of experience. This team, this joint team, brings that capability to bear.
Joe, I'd like to pick up on that point about proven flight experience and go back in time a little bit and talk a little bit about the GMD program. Terry, there's been a lot of tests over the years. You oversaw a lot of those with the Air Force. Can you tell us some about the lessons learned that we've gotten over our experience over the last 20 years?
So testing is about making sure. It's about proof. So when you go out and test your car, you don't just drive down the driveway and go, hey, this thing works great, right? You go for a test drive, you don't go around the parking lot of the car dealer. You take it out on the highway. You take it out on the interstate. You want to make sure this thing, the sound is right, the vibrations are right. And so when you test the missile defense system, you test it against hard stuff. You don't want to prove you can just take on the easiest thing. You take on the hardest. General Hyten, the vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and when he was the strategic command commander, said, we test against hard stuff so that we know our nation's protected. And so through the flight tests that have been done with the ground-based Interceptor, we have learned, right? As you point out, not all of them were successful. But those lessons really advance the system, advance the capability. And if you look at the last two tests, those were the hard tests. They were against an intercontinental ballistic missile. And so that missile was launched from Kwajalein. Remember, I told everybody that's twice as far away from Los Angeles as Hawaii is, right, in the middle of the Pacific. And we launched an intercontinental ballistic missile back towards the United States. And we launched an interceptor from north of Santa Barbara in California, a place called Vandenberg Air Force Base. And that had to take off, and then with a complex scene. Complex scene is a term that we use, in this business, but that just means they make it hard to see inside. They make it hard to find it. They put junk, right? And you try to find the warhead. You try to find the weapon in that. And boom, direct hit, bullet on bullet, thousands of miles an hour, right? And then we just tested now a salvo, so a much more complex. And what salvo means is after that intercontinental ballistic missile was launched back towards the United States, one interceptor, then a second interceptor, right? More of an operational type of a scenario. The first one does that discrimination. Discrimination does hard math to determine what is the warhead, what has to be destroyed, makes that impact. The second one then looks at the field that remains. What's the next most lethal thing? What is the next highest threat? Identifies that. And this is Raytheon hard math, right? This is their algorithms that's doing this. And it identifies it, and then it steers the vehicle to make that intercept. Direct hit, bullet on bullet. It's hard stuff. And so these two companies have all of that knowledge, all of that gained, the ones that have demonstrated, as Joe was saying, in that exo-atmospheric, super high speed, intercontinental ballistic missile, in that test environment, these three successes in the last test are the culmination of that knowledge. It brings all of the lessons to bear that prove that success.
Yeah,
Melissa.
Terry, it's cool that Terry brings up that test because I remember it well. So where Roya was on the EKV side, the software discrimination, you kind of touched on that. I was on the MDA sensor side. So we had the ground-based and sea-based sensors, and we were out, doing our thing on the same test. One of the things that I remember most about that test is how tirelessly the team worked to ensure its success. And that was great. So, again, we brought the sensors, TIPI and SBX, and, tracked, got the discrimination information, sent it back to C2BMC and back out to GBI. So it was awesome to see how many of our, we say competimates, right? Yep. We're all out working this together We bring in small businesses. We were integrated in a badgeless environment. And when that test was a success, to see us all celebrate together, it was amazing. So now here we are again, now teamed up, best athlete approach. We're the right people for this job. I'm looking forward to it. Are you?
We can't
Come
wait
on.
to get started.
So you referenced the test where you had the rocket in the air, the ICBM, the two missiles. What were you feeling inside when that test was going off? The target launches, and then the system activates. What's going through you inside that you can tell us about?
I was going to say, are we breathing?
Holding our breath.
It's an amazing, amazing experience. When there is success, honestly, I cannot say compare it to anything. It's an amazing experience when you see after months and months of hard work and you see it actually doing what it does, because like what Terry was saying, it's amazing. I mean, it's amazing. You have all seen probably some science movies, going into exo-atmospheric, there are things being launched, and you are in that space, and the kill vehicle identifies where is the threat and finds that threat and hits it. It's amazing. I mean, when you think about how much software, how much experience, and how much math goes into that to figure that out and do that, that's amazing experience. And when you see it actually working, I really cannot compare it to any other experience I've had.
Joe?
There's a tremendous, so I was fortunate to be at headquarters and see that flight test with the salvo, and I was anxious, okay, as a Northrop Grumman employee, and but I was also anxious as a citizen of the United States of America, right? Because I wanted it to be successful, and after I saw it, it doesn't really hit you, because I think that was my first in-person flight test experience, right? And because I'd only been with the missile defense in this arena for the last 5 years, it was my first opportunity, and I was like, that is incredible. I went home and I told my family about it, and I said, and they're like, yeah, so? I'm like, no, I'm not doing justice on explaining this correctly, because it was really just, when you see it and you're a part of it, and you know what you've done to contribute to it, and then you see it in it work, you're like, okay, I feel much better now. Okay, it was a sense of ease afterwards. So, and I think that's part of what draws people to this industry, is the ability to win first, and then the ability to see your efforts come to fruition like that.
Yeah.
Melissa, anything to add?
I don't think I can say any more on that.
Okay. Well, we do have some more questions coming in, but maybe we can turn to some of our survey questions. So skill level, I think we touched on earlier in our conversation. We've got several entry-level position participants on the phone, and some mid and experienced professionals as well. So let's go to our next question. What words describe your interest in working in aerospace and missile defense? Challenging. I think we've touched on that. Exciting. I think we've touched on that as well. Cutting edge. Passionate. You guys definitely have shown there's a passion in this industry, and I think that's one of the reasons why we're all in it. I mean, there's homeland defense, obviously. There's passion. There's
Right.
caring about what we do. All right, let's go to our next question. Let's see, in support of NGI, what type of position are you seeking based on your skills and experience? We had a laundry list there of choices, and can you see that, Terry?
Well, I see the model-based engineering is the first, and that is what it's all about. With speed being a major part of this program, we're going to have to be able to collaborate, and as I don't know if Joe, if it was you or Melissa, but talked about it was you that talked about the environment that we're in, and being able to collaborate across time zones, across from our homes maybe,
Right.
But this model-based engineering where multiple people can participate, multiple people can be working on something to make it maximum, but then from the systems engineering perspective, trades, how do I make the whole system, as I described, optimal? And by being able to, well, if I do this here, what's the impact here? And how can we make them both, work together seamlessly to maximize that capability? So model-based is going to be essential to the speed and to the performance that we need. So that's the kind of skills we need. That's the kind of things we want to bring on. We want to be not only cutting edge, we want to be leading. We want to demonstrate, we want to create new ways of doing that type of model-based engineering. So that's great to see that as the number one item there.
I think also it bodes well that we undervalue the digital footprint, okay, in when we do our engineering. And we often talk about, we put a lot of credence into the flight test. We just talked about, how important that is in the flight test and seeing it in operation. But the digital footprint and the digital engineering aspect and the NBSC allows us the opportunity to make sure that that flight test works and to do it in software first and to do it over and over and over again and optimize it and continuously in an agile format, right, update and really provide optimal solutions and optimal designs going into actual manufacturing. So that I think it buys down the risk and it buys down the cost significantly for our customer.
Yeah, I was when you were explaining it, Joe, I was thinking, that modeling the test prior to doing the test, that's the big savings in time and money.
Yeah.
So we're going to switch gears a little bit. We've got a number of questions in about jobs, locations. Where do we plan to put the program headquarters?
Program headquarters,
Huntsville.
right here in Huntsville,
Alabama.
So look, Huntsville, Alabama is the home of missile defense. The Missile Defense Agency is here for the government. There's so many small businesses here that understand missile defense, that understand the zero defect nature of the work they have to bring on the unique and necessary requirements of missile defense. And they come with the digital footprint, the integration, the systems engineering. If you want to be successful in missile defense, you base your headquarters here. Because this is where the environment, the community gets it. They embrace it. And they have the industrial base, small companies, large companies, to be able to bring that to bear. We're going to be based here. We need those cross-functional leaders, those cross-functional people to be here. Yes, we'll be making booster components and booster stages in Utah and in Arizona. There'll be some manufacturing of the kill vehicle activities in Arizona. But modeling and simulation, the algorithm development, the system level testing, that stuff's going to be here in Huntsville.
Obviously, I mean, Huntsville is going to play a big part in this, but you mentioned Utah, you mentioned Arizona. What about some of the other geographic locations where Northrop Grumman?
From a Northrop Grumman perspective, the core of our launch vehicle capability, the place that designs the boosters, all of the systems that go on a booster that control the thrust and control where it goes and the guidance control, that's done in Chandler, Arizona, which is just a suburb of Phoenix. Our booster motors are made in Utah. It's really a national capability. It's a national treasure that still exists to make solid rocket motors that are used for space program, they're used for NASA, they're used for commercial space, and they're used for defense. And then Raytheon.
Yeah, so Raytheon, we have, in addition to Huntsville, we have a very large footprint in Tucson, Arizona. We have an additional business with Raytheon that'll be in California, and then we have suppliers that'll be in other areas. But as far as jobs in locations, definitely it will be a heavily mixed between Huntsville, Alabama, and Tucson, Arizona. That's kind of the two primary locations.
Yeah, but I do think we would encourage others that are located in other areas that we have a huge backfill.
Yep.
So if there's other areas, we are geographically dispersed.
You got it.
Dispersed across the entire nation. So Redondo Beach, you know, and across the world, really.
Yep.
So if you are looking for, we've got a backfill, we will definitely get your resume to the right location.
Yeah, so I saw that word cloud, and I was looking, and I don't think I saw many places that either you couldn't take a quick drive to, like we're not in Tennessee, but you know, I'm 20 minutes from Tennessee.
Yeah, right.
So there may have been one or two more, but anything in that cloud, Raytheon was there.
But also the other thing that's happened, Joe sort of talked about it with the situation we have with COVID. We have all learned how to work remotely. And right now I can tell you that Raytheon Technologies on a various jobs, we are encouraging actually working remotely. So just because where you're located and when your house is does not prevent you to support us. Depending on what the job is, there are some jobs obviously that, especially if they're classified or if you are working in a factory, you need to be in that location. But there are a lot of other jobs that you can really work remotely, and that's encouraged.
And we have the same situation at Northrop Grumman. So, and we basically are encouraging remote collaboration and remote working as much as possible.
I have employees that are 100% telework. Their job lends itself to it, and they're some of our very best performers in those disciplines. You know, configuration, data management, finance. We have some that are just, they can do their job remotely. They are just wonderful at it. So there are opportunities that way as well.
Yep. So we've got multiple questions on how people can apply and how can they elevate their resume to increase their chances of getting into the team. So I'm going to ask you to put on your HR hats here for a second.
Oh, okay.
And what's gonna stand out on someone's resume? And obviously, I think we all have our career sites, so you can plug that as well.
Dear Terry Feehan, I saw your leadership Zoom call. I want that job now. Seriously, I think that I will say this, a lot of leaders, and we're all, because of the environment we're in, we're all time strapped because we spend a little bit more time collaborating and communicating these days. So I think being concise and getting to the point, so having a really clear objective on what you want to do, having a real definition of what your capabilities are and what you think you're going to bring to the table or what you want to learn to do. And I think that's what resonates with people, with at least leaders that are reading it and the hiring manager. So things that come across, 4 or 5 page resumes, sometimes I get those. I do go through them, okay, but sometimes I won't not give them as much I'll say time is that they probably deserve, whereas a 1-page resume with the right objectives and clear-cut understanding of what they want to do really gets attention.
Yeah, I like that. The brevity of the resume, I think, is important. I may even go to 2 pages. A 5-pager, unfortunately, unless somebody's brought it to me as a high flyer, that's going to be a challenge for me. So I'd say that that 2-page max would be key. And I like where you went, Joe, with the objective. I like that list of attributes right up front, and maybe because I am looking for not the exact skill, but what are the other components that you bring to the table. So I like to see some bullets up front that speak to the fit into the role, and then I'm going for the experience. What have you done? And again, I think I touched upon it earlier. It's not about the 100% fit for what I'm looking for you to do, but what have you done, and be able to explain what the impact of what you've done was, right?
Yep.
So don't just give me a bunch of your last accomplishments from your last 2-year review, but what was the impact of that? That's kind of what I want to see come across in a resume.
Yeah. So last night on my email, I was reviewing 6 different resumes for a position that'll report to me. And if you're going to put the attributes, which I do like in the top, but then you should have something in your bullets that speak to the experience that you have. And I had resumes last night that basically took whatever their human resources department had put on the solicitation for their job and took those bullets and just made a paragraph out of them. So to Melissa's point, they didn't say, this was my job, very succinctly. This is what I did, and this is why it mattered.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you can do that, that ties to the attributes, you've got my attention. And you have the ability to express yourself and your accomplishment in a meaningful way, right? That's going to capture my attention. So why do you want to be with us? What do you bring that's special? And then what did you do that kind of speaks to that? That, to me, is a great resume.
Yeah, I want to foot stop one thing. Why do you want to be here? I always ask that question, and it's important that you think about that. Why do you want to be part of this industry, right? And why do you want to be specifically with Northrop Grumman or Raytheon Technologies, right?
Back to the culture.
Yep, and that exactly, because that helps. The way you think about that as a candidate, that helps us understand, are you going to be a cultural fit? And it's doing you justice, is, you know, if we understand whether you're going to be a cultural fit or not, right, for that kind of an environment. So I think that's, I want to foot stomp that that's a really important question.
Okay, so you get the cheat mentoring thing that I do for people that are asking for resume help. And it's what I used, because I applied for a job 4 years ago, right? I went on the website. I looked at what their culture was about. What was their mission statement? What did they profess as important? And in a very short cover letter, I said, your company's about. That excites me. I want to be a part of that. And so I kind of put my objective, if you will, in that cover letter. Cover letter, but don't repeat everything that's going to be in your resume. Don't talk about all this giant experience. It's about culture, and I see this is what your company's about. That excites me, and I want to be a part of that.
And you put effort into wanting the job.
Yeah.
That means that's an indicator for what we're going to see out of you as an employee or a future leader in the organization.
Yeah. During the interview, I always ask, so what, a particular question about our company. Did you do any research? Did you look at all? Right? And so that cover letter kind of says, not only did I look, but I embraced it. I want to be part of that. And that's important.
Since we're talking a little bit about the process here, question actually directly to you, Melissa, from the website. Jameen Shan asks, what are some good tips for having a really good interview?
Oh, I love it. Relax. We are just people. So bring your genuine you. Right now, it's all about, you know, Zoom interviews. I'm doing a lot of Zoom interviews. I had never done that. I actually was interviewed for this position by Zoom, and I wasn't even sure what it was all about. So it's about Upperware. You still want to be professional, so get your Upperware together. But just, you know, relax and also be aware that it may not be the job for you, but it is a relationship building opportunity. I have enjoyed talking to plenty of people during interviews that didn't get the job, but they have made an impression upon me, and I've made that note, and I'm mentally and have my little log for what they may fit into. So I'd say for the interview, you want to prepare yourself and be willing to come in and tell your story of why you believe that you are right for the job. Not what I think I'm looking for, but what you believe makes you the right fit for that job. And to me, that's how you knock it out of the park for an interview. Okay. Be honest, too. Please be honest.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, please be honest.
Otherwise, you make our job really easy.
Yes.
Because if we catch you in something we don't think is honest, you just made our job simple.
Right. And even when that honest is, you know, I want you to share what your weaknesses are in your mind, because I need to know that you can self-assess, right? I need to know that you can do that and be willing to plug those gaps. So I may be open, I usually am, willing to take that risk on a candidate if I'm able to bring a strength to balance their weakness. So if I can't pull that out of you, I'm going to be concerned that you probably haven't really self-assessed and know, you know, your strengths and weaknesses. So a good SWOT analysis, Google it if you're not familiar with it. Know where you are and what you need to do to get to that next level.
All right, staying on process here. applicant applies, resume's in the system, they get the interview, they get hired. Let's talk about what's the next step. What are the mentoring programs, or how do we talk about knowledge transfer? How do we onboard our individuals, our new employees?
That's a good question. And how do we do it during these times? I think when, I don't remember maybe when I was visiting Chandler, somebody was coming in. I was like, okay, that's a similar process to what we do. So, there's that day of the week where new hires come in, right? And you get your package. So we're doing all that, and we're doing it in a safe, secure environment. But then the other thing that both companies do very well is we have employee resource groups. So that ability to get connected with people who you self-identify with, be it Black employee, Asian Pacific, Hispanic, women, veterans, you name it. So to give you that sense of oneness and get you grounded into the culture. So starting to build that culture right away. Some of the things that Terry and I talk about is, what does it mean to be an NGI employee, right? So we're taking some time now to kind of map out that, here's your handbook. This is what it's all about, right? We want to do our own onboarding plan to make sure that from day one, you're able to hit the ground running and understand what is NGI and what are the expectations upon you. Terry already talked about it, the schedule expectations of the customer. We don't have the luxury of a slow onboarding and ramp up. So we need to enable all of our team members to have a successful onboarding.
I'm sorry.
No, but I think what I wanted to add into what Melissa said, both companies have very much a onboarding plan that goes on, whether you come in through one of our functional organizations like engineering, finance, others. They have their own onboarding that they basically get you started, set you up with a mentor that you have in the first several months that you are entering the company to make sure your questions are answered, you know where to go for what. And then each program also, we create an onboarding that is specific to that program. For example, if you're coming in through engineering, there's an onboarding to tell you what an engineer does in Raytheon. You have a mentor that tells you where to go for things. And then that engineer is part of the NGI program, and then there is an onboarding on the program that tells you what NGI is all about and how NGI program is set up. So there are multiple levels, and it's pretty much documented, I think, on both companies to help, especially people who don't have much experience with defense companies. They're coming in new, and they need someone to be holding their hand in the first couple of months to make sure they know where to go.
And I will say one thing that we've created, because we've been in the GMD program in this space for a very long time, 15 plus years, is we've got primers, okay, for GMD. And so that if you're coming in and you're a college hire and you don't know anything about, you start with sort of the primer on missile defense and what it means to be in missile defense and who the customer is and what homeland defense is, and then you go into the primer of GMD. So we have all of this, we have a legacy of information that we use, that we help to onboard our folks as they come on board, whether they have experience or even if they're not experienced. Sometimes, it's a complex program. You need to refamiliarize yourself even if you worked in it 5 or 10 years ago.
Yeah. Terry, anything to add?
It's about getting people the right mentor. We had interns we get a lot of interns, both companies, and at the end of the summer, our interns were, you mean our stuff's going to fly? Because we had them working on real stuff. I remember the one that said that. They were part of the control system for the nozzle, and we had already built it in the computer-aided manufacturing, right? The resin material, the CAD manufacturing. And but you're really making a model and sending that to the metal vendor to turn out? Yeah. So, I'm a junior. I'm going between my junior and senior. That thing's going to fly? And so imagine our new hires right out of college that get assigned that mentor. We don't have pretend stuff.
Yeah.
We don't have practice stuff. you work on real things that are going to fly. And so we have that, okay, this is the way you do this. This is what you need to go do. And then those frequent check-ins that go, yep, a little course correction. And then the next design, you get a little less, but we help develop people because everything we do is real. There's not practice stuff. And so, yeah, you have that mentoring relationship that develops and grows people into being able to be fully capable.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We've got a question from one of our platforms. You've stated that you'll have a dual company program office. We're all here today, so we're showing that. How are you going to ensure that collaborative environment and transparency works when you're from two different companies?
Oh, that's a great question.
It is. So, well, part of it's about that culture and that attitude, right?
Yeah.
But the way the systems work together, they have to know, as the kill vehicle provider, has to know everything about the booster capability and everything that they need in the kill vehicle that is enabled and empowered has to be there. And we have the chief engineer wearing one badge, the missile chief engineer wearing another badge. And so the ability to flow across and to see all of that sauce, that secret sauce, is the only way we can be successful. And so we've structured the program office so that there can't be that locked door that says, sorry, you can't come behind this door. It doesn't work. Our engineering responsibilities, our system engineer responsibilities won't permit it. It's impossible to do the program that way. And so we are dedicated to knock down those barriers and to help people that need that, this ain't that program, right? To grab them by the shoulder and go, this ain't that program. We're not doing it that way. And so it's about that culture and that attitude.
And yeah, it goes to the culture. I think it's culture. It's culture and us wanting to make it work. We did that during the capture. We did it through the proposal process. You see it. We are sitting here together, coordinated. It's that from day one when we started this teaming, that was our motivation, and that is what we have done.
And really, I'm sorry, but all the way up to our president level, we have the thing called the executive committees. And so my boss, Melissa's boss, they sit together, every 2 weeks now, and okay, what's going on? Where's the problems? Where we got barriers, right? Then their bosses once a month, what's going on? Where might we have barriers? And so it is being inculcated, I love that word because it means it's done by repetition over and over, that we are partners, we are in full collaboration, and it's from the president level all the way down. So if you don't get it, everybody else does.
Great, thanks.
Joe, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say that I think it is a lot of culture. I think there's also tools and processes that we're putting in place, and it goes back to that digital footprint that we talked about, and the models that we're setting up and establishing as part of that digital engineering environment, and we're sharing and collaborating and having those joint models. And that allows us to be able to execute seamlessly in a systems engineering perspective, and everything goes back to that digital footprint.
Yeah, I mean, if I could sum it up in one word, it would be intentionally. That's how we're doing it. Terry and I have had workshops. We're in the room together. We got our Post-it notes out, and because we're junkies like that, and we're making sure that we have the roles and responsibilities clearly identified, so people understand that no, really, you're going to have insight into this other company's work because we are a partnership. So we're making sure that we have that mapped out and that we are, living those values so intentionally.
Great. Well, I've got a question here. Ethan is a mechanical engineering degree student. He's a junior. When preparing for a career with your companies, would it be better to try for a job right out of college or go to graduate school for a master's degree?
I think that's a personal choice, and it really depends. I think it's very personal. Some people want to go and wait a little bit, get some job experience, and that actually benefits them because they can actually, when they go get their master's or their PhD, they can apply some of their work experience into what they're doing in terms of their education. Some folks want to go right into it because they want to get all of their schooling behind them and then enter into their career and have their schooling left behind. I really just think it's a personal thing. We like all sorts, and we'll take it all. So we want the physics PhDs apply. We want the mechanical engineers, the systems engineers, the software developers that are right out of college, whether they have their bachelor's or their master's. So I think that we want really a spectrum of folks.
If you're going to go straight through to the master's, look at the classes you're going to take. Engage with your professor. And be careful of just doing theory. Because you want to touch, you want to build, you want to reinforce in your brain theory into product, to learn how that's applied. Because theory that is then applied is really learned, right? There's classes we all took. So if you're a mechanical engineer like me, you took a bunch of classes that weren't in your engineering discipline, part of the core, and after you took the test, if somebody asked you 6 months later, you may go,
I can't remember that.
I got an A on that test, but I don't remember, because of course he's a mechanical engineer, so he got an A on the other test. But the ability to reinforce, and so be careful of just theory and theory, because you need to apply it. And so if you do straight through, if you take the break, then you get some application to reinforce and to make sure that the stuff sticks that you learned. And then when you go to the master's program, you're like, okay, I'm going to be able to do that better. Oh, that's an advancement in this. Oh, I can do that. But both work. It's just try to get some application of theory.
Good advice. And depending on what your budget is, there's tuition reimbursement out there. So
there's also that too.
It may benefit you to go ahead and take that job and get your tuition reimbursement and go part-time or something like that. I graduated part-time nights. I loved it, working full-time.
But also there are people that, like what Terry was saying or Joe was saying, that is a personal choice, that you are not sure what kind of a master's degree you want to go in, and you come in with your bachelor's, and then during learning experience or the job, you find out, like, for example, you're a mechanical engineer coming in, but you realize that you really like system engineering and you want to go for your master's program, you want to go into system engineer, or you're a mechanical engineer but you want to go into more of a thermal sciences or things of that nature. So it actually might benefit you to get some experience, working experience, before you go to your next step.
And a good point would be internships.
Yeah.
So if you're going to go to the to stay on through the master's program, don't go work at Starbucks during the summer. Get internships in the disciplines, because you can learn the things that we've talked about. You can get exposure and experience to those things. And so if you're going to get the master's, I would definitely say internship, internship, internship every time through. And if you get a relationship with our companies, once we kind of like you as an intern, they're paid internships.
Yep.
And we bring you back year after year to advance you, because of course we want you to come work for us after you get your degree.
We are starting to run out of time.
Okay.
We've got one other question here that I'd like to get to, and that's, you look like you all really get along. I think that's apparent.
We're pretending.
How important is personality? And does that ever surpass experience?
What are you pointing at me for?
I know.
No, it does.
We all have big personalities.
My best interview that I ever had with somebody, and all my staff was sitting outside, and we just laughed the whole time. I never asked them a single question about their resume or experience. Their resume and the companies they work for, I said, oh, they got this.
Right.
I know they can do the job. Will they fit? And when they walked out, they asked him, how did it go? And he goes, I don't know. All we did was tell stories and laugh the whole time. And so, of course, I hired him, right? So.
Yeah, no, I believe if you're not having a good time at your job, then you're at the wrong job. I am very effective. I execute, I close, but I have a real good time doing it. If I'm having a bad day, then that's my choice, and I change that and choose to be happy, because it's just, we have to be about our people, right? We can't motivate people walking around, with a sourpuss all day. So, yeah, personality is pretty darn important.
Yeah, I'd say life is hard enough if you're not having fun doing it. then, you know, what's the point, right? And so you're here 8, 10, 12, 15, 20 hours some days when you're working proposals. You got to enjoy it. And if you don't, you know, and so you want people that want to enjoy what they're doing and want to love what they're doing. And I do acknowledge that there are introverts and extroverts. Some people can connect and laugh in an interview. Some people may not, right? But it's giving you a feeling and understanding of what the culture is what's important.
Right, one of the things that I want to say, yes, your personality is extremely important, how you fit in the team and what you want to do, your motivation is important. A school is important, education is important, but that gives you the tools how to do your work. The rest of it is up to you, wanting to do the work and being motivated and wanting to be part of the team, and like what Melissa's saying, coming in, enjoying what you're doing. That is what we look for.
Right. Well, I want to thank each one and every of you for spending some time with us today. We're out of time. I do want to, however, let you know, that participants know that we're planning future events like this. I know that Raytheon has a job fair coming up on October 12th, and Northrop Grumman has a job fair coming up on October 19th. So once again, thank you very much for joining us today, and we'll have a good morning.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks.
Good job, Scott.
Somewhere past the edge of convention.
Beyond the boundaries of tomorrow
lies a special kind of impossible.
A kind of impossible.
Where pioneers forge ahead.
Where no idea is too bold.
And no challenge too great.
Because making a 200-ton airplane disappear is impossible.
Until it's not.
Predicting cyber attacks before they happen is impossible.
Until it's not.
And solving the mysteries of the universe is impossible.
Until it's not. It's our job to break free from what is
To what could be.
Ready to leave the boundaries of what's known.
To define possible.
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 At Raytheon Missiles and Defense, we are one global team. 30,000 employees across 28 countries, delivering world-class sensing and effecting technologies, enabling enhanced capabilities that meet the missions of today while anticipating the threats of tomorrow. And working faster, smarter, and more cost-effectively, we connect vision with precision to deliver proven innovation